Hey guys, Hard 31, day 3, proverb for the day, in Proverbs 3. This is one of my favorite proverbs. It's got a lot of good stuff in it. Some of them have a few things. This one has a lot. So I'm just going to really just keep this video from not being too long. Focus on the one that I really that resonates with me, and it's the 3 verse, starting at verse 5. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and do not lean on your own understanding. A lot of times we do things based on how we feel or think. And that's not, it's a story we tell ourselves. It's not necessarily the truth, but we do things impulsively on emotions. And you can never do things just based solely on emotions. It's never a good way to operate. If you operate on your emotions only, a lot of times you're going to make mistakes. Just think about like even working out. If you went by how you feel, I mean, I know some days I don't feel like working out, but discipline has to trump feelings. And the same with the Lord. You know, sometimes when I feel like going off on somebody, or I start to get those thoughts of I don't feel like they're being nice to me, or I feel like I'm getting annoyed with them, I have to go to the Word of God, because what does the Word of God say? I trust what the Word of God says more than what I think and feel. The heart can be very deceiving, and so can the mind. So I always get back to the Word of God, and says, and that's where it goes to verse 6. In all your ways acknowledge Him, and He will make your path straight. Do not be wise in your own eyes. You know, how many times have we tried to think our way through a problem and only to make it worse? You know, I love this crappy Christian cliche that God has a plan. People say that all the time when they do something in their own quote unquote wisdom, that God had a plan, and then they say, oh, God had a plan because that things didn't go their way, and it's like He's going to purposely ruin something for them. The real reality is they had a plan. It was a stupid plan. It wasn't lined up with the words of God, and now they're reaping the consequences. All right, so don't use that don't ever use that cliche, I would say. When you're lined up with the Word of God, and you're listening to Him, and you're being cautious, but you're not being fearful, and you're lining things up with everything you do with the Word of God, He will make your path straight. And what's the quickest distance to something? Say you have a goal, or you have a desire of your heart that He puts in your heart. The quickest way is, is through what He tells you to do. All right, and not the way we do it. A lot of times we make the path more and more crooked, so He makes the path straight. And then do not be wise in your own eyes. I love that one, because a lot of times we think we're so smart, and we get a little bit full of ourselves. And it's sometimes a good humbling to realize that we're not, and that the Lord's right and we're not, and His ways are higher than our ways. So, and then verse 9, I love to honor the Lord with your wealth, and from all the first of all your produce, and so your barns are filled with plenty, and your vats will be overflow with new wine. I can speak to this too. Even since the recession, one of the things I resolved to do was never to cut back on my charitable giving and my tithing. To me, that's like giving ground to the enemy. That's me not trusting God. You know, what you do with your money says a lot about where your heart's at. And every year as I've increased my giving, my financial situation has gotten better and better. Now I'm not talking about having a 10,000 square foot mansion and 5 cars and 10 houses, but I'm talking about no debt. I'm talking about not checking my bank account all the time because I'm worried. I'm talking about there's always abundance there to meet other people's needs. And that's what He's talking about when He talks about, He says He'll give you sufficiency in everything, so you have abundance to meet people's needs. Well, that's if you're doing things His way. If you're not tithing, if you're not regular, if you don't have a cheerful heart and a giving heart, and you're not giving, don't expect a financial blessing. All right. First of all, if you're tithing, you need to be tithing. That's the minimum, and then go above and beyond that as the Lord moves you. He'll always pay you back. I know I'll finish with this, with the money thing. I know one time I made a deal with myself. I said, whatever cash I have in my pocket, I'm going to put it in the plate at church. And one of my clients paid me a huge training bill, hundreds of dollars in cash. And I remember it was almost like my hand felt like maybe 500 pounds as I lifted it up out of my pocket, took the money out of my wallet, and put it into the little plate thing. I can't think of the name. And then I put it in there, and not within a day or two, I had to go out to one of my rental properties at the time and shovel the snow because it was vacant. And there was something in the doorway. As I got out there, I looked in the doorway, and like FedEx had dropped an envelope. And in that envelope was a check it was an escrow check of money that I didn't know I had coming to me. And it was probably 3 or 4 times of what I put in that box, or in that plate at church. Another time, I had a trainer that used to rent space for me that left to start his own gym, owed me $1,000. And I just I wouldn't let it go. Finally, I told the Lord, you know what? His friendship is more important than this money, Lord. I know you're going to provide. And literally this had been 6 months. And the day I decided to do that, I pulled into the lot of his gym and was going to walk in and tell him his debts are free and I'm going to just forget about it. I'd rather keep our friendship solid. Literally, guys, the moment I got out of my car, there was a transfer from Wells Fargo from him. He had paid up his debt with me. So what the point is being is when it's God's money and we're doing the right things with, he's going to take care of your finances, because I know finances can always be a challenge. So it's just a couple things to think about from Proverbs today. I'll be checking in with you guys every couple of days on how you're tracking along and responding to your texts. So God bless you guys. Have an awesome day. Go out and serve the Lord.